Impact Wrestling President Scott D'Amore here, and you're listening to Count It Out with Mike and Tyler.
This episode of Count It Out with Mike and Tyler is provided by Cottage Spring.
Listening to Count It Out with Mike and Tyler.
Well, we are live, pals, and welcome to another edition of the Bill Apter Seal of Approve provided by Cottage Springs. Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. My name is Tyler. I'm not joined by Mike this week. Oh no, Mike could not make it, and I said, I got to reach out to somebody that could somehow overexceed Mike, and I think I did it, because joining me today, he is one of the most well-rounded and respected wrestlers in all of Ontario. But as incredible as he is inside of the ring, it does not hold a candle to how amazing he is to speak to outside of the ring. I am joined by the one and only, one of our favorite people, Reverso. Reverso, what's going on, man? How's it going?
Oh, fantastic, Tyler. It's an honor and a privilege. I really appreciate the kind words. Thank you very much.
It's very easy because you're one of my favorite people to talk to. Our paths haven't crossed in a while, but every time we run into you at a show, it's always a pleasure. We've had so many great conversations, but they're always kind of quick conversations because show days are hectic. So I'm really kind of excited to sit down and kind of learn a little bit more about you today and just shoot the shit for a while.
Awesome. Looking forward to it myself. This is going to be great.
Well, I want to start with something that you've been doing really recently. And you've been working some of these incredible CNE shows with Mike Clark and Championship Wrestling, Classic Championship Wrestling. We've had Jacques Rougeau with them. Tito Santana was there last weekend. We've got Jerry the King Lawler coming up. Incredible stuff. How's your experiences been with the CNE? It looks like you might be a little banged up from a couple of the shows there.
Yeah, we had a one rough day, but other than that, it's been good. Like, it's really hard to organize something like that for the longevity that they're going for, the 2 weeks plus, and to bring in the talent of that caliber over that time frame and to have everything run as smoothly as it has been running. It's honestly a testament to Mike and his professionalism and how he's able to handle just the organizing that whole event. Like, honestly, things have gone pretty smooth besides like I said, the one rough day. But other than that, that's just it ain't ballet is kind of a cliche that we like to say in pro wrestling. You know what I mean? It's not going to be always easy, and it's not going to be the softest in there. Like, every once in a while you're going to have a sharp edge, you're going to have a rough bump, you're going to have a corner that doesn't quite sit just well. So unfortunately I had something happen where just want to say just when you get going in there and you're feeling it, things happen. So someone was just getting a little bit too anxious, and I think there was a slip. Honestly, it wasn't intentional. Nothing that I've ever had happen like that usually is. Obviously nobody wants to hurt anybody else, but it was the first time that I've ever had to pull out of a match. So that was a rare thing for me, but I guess there's always a first, even 20 years into someone's career. That's why pro wrestling is great, is because there's never a dull moment.
What exactly was the injury, just for the people that aren't watching on YouTube and are listening on Spotify?
Oh, okay. Well, if you're just listening, basically I broke right at the bridge of my nose. It was snapped right in between the eyes, kind of thing. And when I went to the doctor, I have kind of a high pain tolerance. So right away at first I was like, nah, I'm going to be wrestling tomorrow. This isn't that big of a deal. And I had a few people tell me, well, your nose looks kind of crooked, you should probably go get it checked out. And so I eventually caved after 3 or 4 people told me that, I should go get it looked at. And yeah, when I got the x-ray, the doctor told me, he's like, yeah, your nose is kind of sitting over here. The bone isn't even, he's like, I got to push it down in. And just like in a movie, he's like, if you want something to bite onto or anything, I was like, no, I'll be fine. Let's go. And yeah, when he pushed that sucker back in, it was exactly like he said. I remember I have this defense mechanism where I laugh when something hurts enough. And yeah, I was, you were not kidding, sir. Yes.
Oh man, that literally just sent a chill up my spine. I don't like, there's certain areas for me where I don't like to be hit or touched, or like, and my nose is a trigger for me. I don't like if even if someone just honks my nose, like I don't like it. I cannot imagine what it would feel like to have somebody pop my nose back into place. So, are you taking some time off now? What's the healing process like for this?
Yeah, I've taken a couple weeks off here. Like I had a couple shows where I was like, it's probably just better that I take a step back from, because the first week I was told I shouldn't even blow my nose because just got to let everything settle kind of the way it is. They can't really like hold it in place. He once he put it back in, it's got to just like sit. So I can't really mess around with it. So I've been pretty good that way. It's been about a week right now. So today is like the first day where I'm like, okay, I can start to blow my nose like a normal person again. So basically my plan is just the first show that we have back is the 60th annual Cottam Fair and Horse Festival is going to be held in Cottam on September 15th. So that's Border City Wrestling. We're, gonna do what we always do and just put on a great show for the locals and show them exactly what Border City Wrestling's like up and coming talent and like the veterans have. We're going to showcase what we can do leading into that Maple Leaf show that's coming up on October that we'll end up touching on in the future here.
Oh yeah.
But the C&E shows, like going back to that, it was a good experience. Like even though I have the nose, like I wouldn't take it back. Like I would still do pretty much anything the exact same way. Like I said, it wasn't on purpose. It was an accident, and like it's things like, it's funny. I talked to friends of mine who kind of came up in wrestling with me, and the conversation of the athletic commission has kind of come up. And I remember when I was young and first coming up into the business, we had to get approved. We had to actually have like a pro wrestling license. So that mean that someone that was vetted in the industry that knew like Ken Hayashi was able to vouch for us to Ken to say like, yes, I trained this guy. He's gone under this training and he's safe. You know what I mean? It was to kind of prevent people from just like setting up a ring in a back lot somewhere and saying that it's okay for people to wrestle after, not really having that much practice or training or anything like that. Back in the day when I first came into it, like a green light like meant something, you know what I mean? And that's like when I first came back into wrestling, like when I came back in 2015, it was kind of different than when I first started in 2004. Like when I first started, it was like a really, really healthy scene. Obviously the Attitude Era had just like kind of come to a close, but like we were still living off of the great vibes of it and everything. And if you look at what was developing at Can-Am in particular, like we had the X division was just boiling. Like the top talent of the X division at the time was just getting brewed right there and within the four walls of the Can-Am Wrestling School. So one of the things that I have now, like an onus I have on myself, is trying to leave the wrestling industry in a better place than what it was when I came into it. And as impossible of a feat as that seems, because, like I said, when I first came into it, the likes of those guys were the ones that were walking the halls and, setting the tone. I still want to make sure that I'm doing exactly everything I can to make sure it's a safe place for young talent to promote themselves and grow into healthy wrestlers and hopefully achieve that same height that people like P.D. Williams and Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin have achieved, through the same kind of avenues that they have and that we have.
See, I think something that I'm really fascinated by that too, to kind of, if you were to talk to Dan of 2004, right, and he's got a broken nose, do you think that he's taken any time off? Because now, I think that's leading by example, that you've taken some time off, you're letting it heal. And I think even just like that right there is a great example of making things better. Is that something like, is your mind frame change with the many years of doing this in regards to healing yourself and letting yourself get the proper rest that you need?
I would definitely say that my mindset's changed, but I think that just like with any other person, it's like experience and seeing things happen that changes that mindset. Like seeing people get injured, seeing people pass away, actually, it really does it change how you look at the industry and how you carry yourself and how you treat other people. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't try anything on anybody else. Like when I was younger, I used to think that I had all this ability and capability. I was so athletic and flexible and everything like that. And I just thought, like, you know what I mean? I can do anything at any time. And for the most part, like I was kind of right, but I did have my botches and stuff like that. And even at a young age, that was one of the things, like from 18 to 20, I was kind of like trying to escape from, was I had these little botches. But it turns out that it's just like when you don't have that respect for yourself and respect for your opponent without even really realizing it, like you wouldn't try something on your opponent without trying it in practice, because that's almost like disrespectful to that person. You know what I mean? You're just saying like, oh, I don't, it doesn't matter how it turns out in there, as long as I know I'm okay, in a sense like that, right? So whereas like when I was younger, I might not have seen it as reckless. I might have just seen it as, I'm confident and I know I can, I'm very capable in my ability. Like I know what I'm doing. At the time, like I from here, I would have looked back on it as reckless in my older age. But that's just perspective, I think, and experience that changes that.
Is there like a strategy or a way that you think that you can show that to this generation coming up, or is it just, you just got to go through it to get it?
I think in that sense, it's just leading by example. Like you can't really say, you have to do when it comes to it. So hopefully there's a lot of other veterans out there. Honestly, like you look at Gabriel Fuerzas and the Von Vertigos and, what I mean, the people that are on the Ontario indie scenes, Sheldon Jean, Junior Benito, McCrae Martin, like thank goodness we have some of these talents here to carry themselves the way they do on the Ontario scene, because then these younger guys have someone to look up to and see how they conduct themselves, you know what I mean? To see how they train, how they, you know what I mean? Like how they work, because this is a job. It's not just, you know what I mean, fun for some of us. We put in 80 hours of work in professional wrestling in a week, and we put 40 hours of work into a shoot job. And it's like, well, what's, you know what I mean, really your passion here, and what's really your, so when it comes to pro wrestling, you only get what you put in. And that's why you see some of the guys at the top are sitting there, is because they've put everything that they had into it. And, they're working constantly, never taking days off.
I love that you mentioned though that it's you're representing yourself, and it's not just get in the ring and wrestle. Like what are some things that you wouldn't think about that should go in, because it is you're 80 hours a week as a wrestler. What are those little things that people might not know about that just separate the top tier from maybe the people just starting out, or the people that just don't know any better, like to put that extra grind in?
I honestly think it's accountability and expectations. One of the things that I think is hard for people to grasp is accountability. You have to be able to look in the mirror and say, I did this wrong, or I need to improve here. And it's hard to say that you're not good enough ever. I mean, I think a lot of us pro wrestlers, we almost do it to ourselves a lot. We look at ourselves in the mirror, we have body dysmorphia, you know what I mean? We look at our matches and we're never ever happy or anything like that. We're perfectionists. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're almost like drawn to this industry, is because we feel like it's something we can manipulate and something that we can improve on, and we can eventually get to that point where we feel comfortable with it, right? So honestly, I just think that that's, you know what I mean? That's I don't know, like see. I think that's the main goal, is just to try and see yourself improve every day. And if you're accountable and you're able to take little steps and set those little steps and hold yourself true to those and see that little improvement over time, like if you're setting a goal of wrestling on TV and you're 18, you know what I mean, then that's a really, really far step. You know what I mean? The first thing would be to get some experience, try and make some money to get some really good looking gear, try and get in there with some people who are a little bit more experienced than you that can help you, right? So sorry about that long pause in between. I'm just trying to think oh my gosh, like, yeah, this, you know what I mean, this long process like dwindled down into a little thing. Like honestly, like taking accountability and being able to set realistic goals and small steps, that's one of the things that I think is paramount now in professional wrestling.
When we were speaking, setting up this interview, we exchanged a couple messages, and you said something to me, and you gave a quote, and it really stuck with me, and I'd like to maybe ask you if you can elaborate on it a little bit here. It says, the importance of undergoing proper training and maintaining your skills. And I really stuck with me because, again, it starts right from the ground floor. You look at these great wrestling schools out there, but I would love for you to maybe elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by that, and just kind of maybe dive into the psychology behind that sentence a little bit.
Well, it's funny. So I've said in the past that I used to be like an altar boy. I used to be really religious, and I was involved in the Catholic Church until I was about 14 years old. So it's kind of funny that you bring that up, and like I'm just reminded of my past upbringing. And there's a parable of the axe cutter that I was told when I was at a young age, and it was this guy just started as like he would chop trees with using an axe, like old school axe, right? So it was like back in the 1900s or whatever. And his first week, he was the best at chopping trees. Like he hit his numbers, hit his goals, like doubled the production that everybody else did. And then the next week, his numbers started to dwindle a little bit. And then the week after, dwindled a little bit more and dwindled a little bit more until eventually he was the least producing guy on the field. And he'd been doing, now he's like, he feels like, okay, I should be getting better. Like I have more experience. You know what I mean? That first week I was killing it. Like he talks to an older, more experienced woodcutter, and he asks him like, what am I doing wrong? And the older experienced woodcutter says, well, are you sharpening your axe? Like after every week when you're done, cutting your trees down or anything like that, do you sharpen your axe? And the young guy says, no, I don't know. What are you talking about, sharpen it? You know what I mean? So he's basically what the parable is talking about is, are you honing your skills? So you can come in at a young age and you have all this athleticism and you have all this ability and you can do amazing things. Like you can like be Ricochet or Will Ospreay. But if you don't hone that ability and you don't train yourself, eventually you're going to miss that one flip because you just don't practice. Eventually your foot's going to slip and, catch somebody here. And, that's just the consequences of, you know what I mean? Like some of the best at anything, like just chess players or even like guys that are working construction, if they take a long time off, they're going to feel like they're rusty. You know what I mean? In order to maintain those skills, you have to put yourself in a position where you're not only practicing those skills, but you're challenging yourself every day, challenging yourself to improve and challenging yourself to do something that you haven't done, putting yourself out of your comfort zone and then seeing how you react to that.
I like that. I like that a lot. Is that something that you guys you do a lot of work with Border City Wrestling, and you guys are at the school all the time. You got Josh Alexander in there. The last that I'm not sure if he's still doing it, but that's the last that I saw. Is that something that you guys make sure to install into that new breed of talent coming up when you're working with them?
Oh yeah, 100% actually. So one of the things that we'll do is we'll try and push these kids into positions like safely. Obviously, we're not going to try and like, hey, it's your first time up there, like, you know what I mean? But one of the things that we'll do is we'll practice amateur wrestling or jujitsu. Like we'll have like very like we'll instruct kids on how, you know what I mean? But most of the time, some of these people that are coming into the wrestling school, they have no pre-fight background. They have no like athletic background. Some of them are just like really big fans and they want to get involved and they see, you know what I mean? Some of them almost just want to see what it's like for a few months and just to experience it and like have sort of an appreciation of it. And that way they can go back to being a fan from a different angle kind of thing. So it's weird how like there's all this different variations of people that are coming into it. But I feel like that's one of the things that we do above all is we try and experience people with how it would really feel if you were trying to get out of this actual hold, if you were trying to maneuver yourself out of this wrist lock or something like that, right? Because what we're trying to establish at a base is the realism on top of it, the believability, safety, and enjoyment of all the fans and everything alike. So, that's one of the things I think we do. It's a little bit uncomfortable, obviously, but I mean, like I said before, it ain't ballet. So.
Absolutely. So, and you said that you broke in 2004. That's what you said a couple minutes ago there. So what's the biggest differences from when you were breaking in and how you were trained to how now you are having a hand training and how things are to break in now?
Well, certain things I like a lot. It's definitely a lot more of a welcoming atmosphere. And I think that's just by design. When I first came into the business, you were supposed to wash people out. You were meant to hurt people and make people want to quit because the only people that endured that treatment were the ones that really, really wanted to stay. And those were the guys that had the passion for it and the ones that proved that they were, you know what I mean, more acclimated towards it. So that happens less and less because there's so many more things that you can do. So when I was younger, there wasn't really a video editor or anything like that. That was, you know what I mean? You'd have to send that stuff away. It was a lot more complicated of a process. It wasn't something that you could just do in your home on your PC kind of thing. So now not only is there much more opportunity, but it's also a much more welcoming atmosphere for, like I said, if people are just fans and they want to come in and see exactly what it is we do, how it feels, you know what I mean? They have an appreciation from a different aspect for the wrestling industry. Like that's something that we've encountered more as where back in the day we would have honestly, we would have probably deterred someone from coming to the school for that reason.
Absolutely. I like that. I like that a lot. Who are some of the people that help first break you in? Because I know you've had a lot of people help train you, and the list is incredible. I believe it's guys like Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin and a lot of that Windsor, Detroit crew. Who are some of the guys that really helped the light bulb go off for you?
Oh, Joe Legend, for sure was the very first one. He was the one who just like I know when you become a wrestler after being a fan for so long, like you do look at the industry differently, but it's hard to really really state how even on another level as a wrestler, Joe brought me into looking at wrestling differently, even on another level from that. Like he saw everything so like his psychology and the way that he understood the way like things work was on another level. Honestly, I was so happy to have him early on. And then when it comes to other things like Johnny Devine, like it was immeasurable, like the toughness that he instilled in me.
Mhm.
Honestly, like he's just like a Heart family graduate, like a Heart Dungeon graduate, and so
Yeah.
he was able to instill that on a lot of the students that he had touched when he was in Can-Am. So just the, you know what I mean? I want to say that like those are the two that aren't as commonly talked about that I think I very much value, and it goes understated.
We had Johnny on our show, and he by far has done the best Stu Hart impersonation that I've heard out of anybody so far. Because anytime we have somebody with any connection to Stu, I'm a big Stu Hart guy. Like I'm a big Hart guy, big Stu Hart guy. And anytime that we have anybody that's touched Stu Hart, I always get Stu stories. It's not even close. He has the best impersonation of Stu Hart I've ever heard.
Oh, I would believe it. He's probably heard it a few times.
So, that's another thing I'd love to talk about is growing up. When did you first catch the wrestling bug? Like, where does your fandom come from? What's your first moments that you remember being like, damn, this is awesome?
Oh, I gotta say, it was probably when I was 5 years old. I remember that's around the time that the Bret and Owen Hart feud was going on. And I had a brother who was only like 2 years old at the time because I was five. So I just remember like that sibling rivalry and me being young and kind of understanding that, but also like kind of understanding what was going on there. And it connected with me on a level that was different than anything else that was going on. And that's what really sunk me into it. And it's crazy how to think that they were both Canadian wrestlers, because it wasn't just that they were Canadian that drew me in, but it was one of the things that cemented it afterwards. And then just Owen's ability as a wrestler, I became really appreciative of Owen, like as a talent. I remember at a young age. And yeah, just ever since then, I remember being like a little boy and asking my dad, like looking up to him, being like, "Oh, is there wrestling on tonight, Dad? I can't wait to go and watch it with you," kind of thing. So it's weird how like certain things stick with you. And I remember that specifically.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest feuds, and it holds up to this day. I
Yeah.
like when I think of like the best stories told in WWF WWE history. I think of stuff like maybe the Mega Powers. I think of Bret and Owen. I think of Austin McMahon, and probably the Bloodline. Now the Bloodline stuff's been
Oh,
incredible,
yeah.
but I mean that's in the early '90s we're talking about, and it still holds up. All the little things that Owen would do, like the bratty little brother stuff. It's just he was phenomenal. And I'm so happy we're seeing like the Owen Hart Foundation Cup now. Like that's so great to honor him.
Yes. Yeah. He definitely deserves it. Oh, yeah. He's, had such an impact on so many Canadian wrestlers and wrestlers around the world that, yeah, he deserves a little bit of, at least, you know what I mean? Like, recognition for sure. Definitely.
Absolutely. And even going back for these C&E shows that we were just talking about, like, is that a cool moment for you to step back as a wrestling fan and just be like, some of the biggest matches in Canadian history have taken place at the C&E at that old fairgrounds? Is that cool for you to step back and be like, man, my name is part of like that history now in the fairgrounds?
Oh, yeah. It's something that when I was a kid, if I would going back to the broken nose, talking to my 18-year-old self, I wouldn't be able to believe it. You know what I mean? It would be one of those things where I remember thinking that probably wouldn't have as much of an opportunity being the size that I was. That's another thing that was different from when I was just breaking into now, is that a lot of the guys like Brett and Sean were considered small at 6'1", and I'm 5'7". So that's like severely undersized. One of the first things Scott said to me was that, kid, I don't know if I'd let you in. You're a little small, but you seem to have a passion for it and you got the money in your hands. So why don't we give it a shot? Right. But that's one of those things where I wouldn't have thought at then that I would have that opportunity, especially what was going on then. But now, like I said, the industry has changed. It's so much more welcoming. It's given so many more people opportunities because other people have earned those opportunities for us. Like when you look at people like Rey Mysterio and, other people like Chris Jericho and them that have paved the way for a smaller worker to show their acumen. And then you have guys like Johnny Gargano in there now and just cementing that, we can still do it. So it's amazing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 1, 2, 3 Kid. That's another name I always think of that he like for what he did in the WWF and when it was in the early '90s and it was the land of the giants. It's unbelievable. Like that
Yeah,
guy.
Razor was magic. It's true.
Yeah,
Honestly,
absolutely.
a little while. It's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the other thing I'd love to know, because I love knowing about people's fandom, is what's some of your go-to matches like that you can just put on and watch 100 times that you never get sick of? Some of your favorites of all time.
Oh my gosh.
I'm putting you on the
I
spot now. That's a loaded question.
It is. It's definitely going to be Eddie and Ray at Halloween Havoc, where Ray was wearing his Phantom gear.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I watch it pretty regularly. When I'm in the mood for like just a good show, like honest the Brett versus Sean, where it's the double turn and Shamrock was the referee. That's just like such a well done story, you
Yeah.
know.
That's
So
when WrestleMania 13, I think, right? Brett Austin, is that?
yes, yeah. So that was just amazing. Oh, I have to go back. Yeah, but yeah, like I love like those are two of them right there. Um, the Brett, like for a whole show, the WrestleMania 10, where they go where Owen beats Brett and then Brett wins the title at the end. Yeah, and it's like Owen's there. It's like when you're
That
talking about
luck.
the way a show should be built from beginning to end, that's one of, you know what I mean? Just those epic great ones to sit there and watch it from start to finish. Yeah, yeah, amazing. So I guess that's a few of them right off the top of my head. I guess I could keep going and going, but
Absolute classics for sure. I have to come over for a beer one day. I could watch those all day. There you go. Um, I want to talk a bit about somebody that you do some work with, and that's Mr. Josh Alexander. You guys are in the school together. How much do you take away from getting to work with Josh so closely all the time?
oh, honestly, it's something that I don't take for granted. Like, I understand that there would be people around the world that would kill for that opportunity to not only work with them, but to learn from them. You know what I mean? There's some kids that have had the chance where Josh has taken them under their wing, and I don't think they've quite understood how important something like that is. So, what I would say is that I've definitely tried to value my time in there. He's definitely pushed me to make me a better wrestler and coach. I can't even express what I feel we're able to do in the wrestling school. Like I feel that the two of us together, what we can bring and elevate other people's games. Obviously, like he's a huge aspect of that. I just like to help out, but I feel so accomplished with what we are able to do in that wrestling school, with how we're able to pull things out of students that they never thought they could be able to do. You know what I mean? Just like when I see somebody their eyes light up with just satisfaction from trying, like it literally brings joy to my heart, and it's one of the reasons why I do it. So that's one of the things that I can't even express how much joy it brings to me.
Are you starting to get those same feelings then? Like if you were to hit a personal career accomplishment now, watching these people that you have a hand in training hit goals or hit something big, are you starting to get the same vibes? Like I don't want to say proud dad vibes, but you know what I mean? Like the that those are the I had a hand in helping with that.
Yeah, well, like we're talking about being the proud dad here, so I'm going to bring up Upinder because he's one that honestly lately, during the pandemic, we spent every day, like literally 5 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week in the school, just working on every little thing that we possibly could. And I remember when he got his contract, like I'm not gonna lie, I cried. I was so happy for him because I knew how much work he had put in there with me because I had done it too. I knew how important it was to him, and I knew how he didn't want to let his family down back home. And I knew, like, all these driving factors. I knew how important it was to him. So to see him succeed, literally, like I said, it brings joy to my heart. I can't even express. So yeah, that proud dad moment every time I see Bhupinder on something TNA, or every time I see like a match graphic of his, like that, I'm just like, yeah, smile and like, well,
I love
proud
that.
too.
I love that. Someone that we have to talk about as well is Scott Demore. You're very hand in hand with Border City Wrestling. We've seen you in TNA, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And we have upcoming work with Maple Leaf Pro that we're going to talk about in a minute too. But what is your relationship with Scott? How important is it to you? And how has he, like, what are some of the things that he's taught you along the way? If you can even name, I'm sure there's been so many, but some that really stuck out to you. Just, being around Scott, how important is that to you?
Oh my gosh, it's legit life altering. Like Scott's the type of person that he carries himself in such a way where it's respectable, and you want to carry yourself in a similar way. You know what I mean? Like he's earned so much respect, and he's earned so much just like don't even know exactly how to express, but like he's where he's at in his position in wrestling. It doesn't matter with what happened in TNA. He didn't lose any position. The way that he treats people outside of wrestling, it's a way that I strive to treat people. He's got one of the biggest hearts of anyone I've ever met. People that fall in hard times, that have been close to him, that have needed help. I'm sure you saw on the Chris Van Vliet show, like he talked about a time where he struggled, and I feel like that's why he's able to relate to people. Like people think this, oh, like, Scott's been rich his whole life and never had to struggle or anything like that. Like, no, like Scott's known struggles lots, and he can very much relate to that. And now that he's in a position where he's able to help people, he likes this the exact same way. He gets that joy and fulfillment from helping people and seeing them grow. And there's definitely those proud dad moments for him where he's got all of these, you know what I mean, people underneath him. Scott has so many kids, even though he doesn't have like a biological kid. He's got so many kids that look up to him and call him dad because of everything that he's been able to do for people. So I got to say that my relationship with Scott has been invaluable, and it's made me a better person for sure.
And what a great storyteller he is too. I could have listened to him on Van Vliet. I know they went like two hours, something like that. I felt like it was 20 minutes. Like he's just such a fantastic storyteller.
It's true. It's true. I was listening to it at work when I was just doing my shift, and before I knew it, it was already break time. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, that was really interesting. Holy geez. And I gotta say, one of the things that I want to bring up is I'm so proud about Scott's drive to showcase Canadian wrestling, with what he talked about of how hard it is to break into the mainstream and into the American media for some of us Canadian talents. Like the fact that he's taking the lead on that and trying to really showcase Canadian talent. I couldn't be more proud to be a part of what's going on there with Maple Leaf.
Well, and that's one of the main reasons why Mike and we were such big and are still such big supporters of TNA wrestling, because that was really the promotion that was showcasing a lot of Canadian talent. We had people like Josh and Ethan Page, and now Jody Threat's on there, and there's a handful of others that I can't think of off the top of my head, but they got that opportunity to show, because I think Canada and Ontario specifically, I will be very biased and opinionated on this, however, but I think that we're like this unplucked, like, gold mine of talent. We're spoiled here in Ontario.
Yes, definitely. We have a lot of talent that I feel, and this is one of the goals, I think, of Maple Leaf Wrestling. And I think it's one of the goals that each of us should be setting to us that's part of this, is Canadian wrestling is on par with anything around the world when it comes to wrestling. And I feel that anybody, if you're on this Maple Leaf show, it's because Scott really truly feels that you belong on par with anybody that's out there, not just in Canada, but across the world. So I feel like what he's really desiring to showcase here is that not only do we have some of the best wrestlers in all of Canada that are going to be gathering in Windsor on the 19th and 20th for this one show, it's some of the best wrestlers that the world has to offer. It's going to be one of the best wrestling shows that the world has to see. And he's presenting it in that case, in that form.
Well, and right before we started recording, the announcement just went out of the huge main event that we're going to be seeing: Josh Alexander against Takeshka, TNA Wrestling against AEW Wrestling. How cool is that we're getting that? Yes. What a match.
And on sale as we're recording today, Monday the 26th.
That's right. So this will be released on Thursday. So grab your tickets now while you can get them, because this is going to be a hot crowd. St. Clair College is a great venue with that's had some great moments in Canadian wrestling history. Mike and I are planning. We're hoping, it's really close to my wedding date, so I'm hoping that I can maybe get some brownie points with the wife leading up to that and sneak up to the show. But we'll see. But that's our plan. Who's who of talent.
Windsor, come on.
Yeah, it's not too bad. We're only up here in Barrie, so it's not too bad. We can make it. Even for one night, even for one night. But I just love not only like the branding that we're doing here at Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, but the throwback to the history of these video clips from the Tunney days that, there's not a lot of that footage left around, and Scott's really doing a great job of showcasing it and mixing the past and the present. What are your thoughts overall on the early stages of Maple Leaf Pro?
Well, it's one of the things that I'm very, very proud of, because there is a rich history when it comes to not only just Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, but Canadian wrestling in general. And Scott wants to showcase that history, that, we can't overlook how important Canadian wrestling has been to the overall scene. You know what I mean? Like how Stampede Wrestling and how Maple Leaf and like all these things that were around back before WWE was as prominent as it was. These were the avenues to see some of these top stars. Like we've put out some of the footage of Bret Hart and Ric Flair and Angela Mosca, like all these people, these huge names that you wouldn't have an opportunity to see. And that's kind of even the goal, is to try and hopefully we can bring everything back up to that point where it's like, yeah, when you want to see these top stars integrate, this is going to be the place to see that, is Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling.
Absolutely. And I know it's just was talk on the Van Vliet show, but when Scotty was talking about looking at that old Maple Leaf Garden, I got goosebumps, man. Like if that's the end goal, or if that's something that he's working towards, like that will be an incredible can't miss show for sure. So I just want to keep that manifesting that into the universe, that maybe that's the goal, after we get these first shows out of the way at St. Clair College, right?
Oh, I hope so. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I've never heard maybe like that. I've never heard the exact plans, but it's been manifested so many times by so many people that if it doesn't happen, it's like it's almost gonna be disappointing in a
A
way.
little bit.
But you know, with what's going on, I don't think there's anything that could really disappoint. Like, to tell you the
No.
truth, like Scott said, we're gonna be able to focus on this show here. And then after we hit this home run, this grand slam, this 8-run home run that we're going to hit here on October 19th and 20th, then we can refocus, and then we can try and, see where our chips fall, as they like to say.
It's so true. And and the tie-ins with Border City Wrestling, Border City Wrestling, when people talk about these great promotions in Canada, it's got to be mentioned right up there. Border City Wrestling is the only independent wrestling show that Dwayne The Rock Johnson ever did in his entire career. That's incredible.
Yep. Oh yeah. And if you look at the other names in the past, you know what I mean, that have come through, Greg the Hammer Valentine, you know what I mean? Like the Honky Tonk Man. We just had Scott versus Honky Tonk Man get released on Maple Leaf Wrestling as well. It's incredible to think that the history is but it's been around for 30 plus years now, and it's had some fantastic names. And as we continue to prove that Border City Wrestling is the pinnacle of independent wrestling on the Southern Ontario scene in particular, but also I feel Canada wide, like people strive and have known, like if you are involved in independent wrestling in some way, like I feel like you've heard of Border City Wrestling.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping that all of us great fans are going to get to see you lace them up for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling as well. I'll put that in the manifesting as well, because I'll tell you, one of my highlights a couple years ago when we went to TNA Wrestling Sacrifice was getting to see you do a little bit of work there, St. Clair College. But you've done a couple shows with TNA, and I want to talk about two matches in particular. And the first one I want to talk about was just recently. We got to see you in there with Rich Swann. What a great talent he is. A great moment for you. The match was fantastic. Take us through that day for you. What was it like getting in there with Rich?
Oh, it was fantastic. Honestly, it was one of those things where you find out on the day of, and it was just kind of like a dream in a sense, because you hope to be wrestling in a big arena in front of many people and with as many talented people as possible, and that's exactly what happened. It was to get it in Montreal with such a rich wrestling Canadian history that it has, and to be against Rich, you know what I mean? Like that was just an otherworldly experience. Like I can't even say that I got nervous, because to tell you the truth, it was like one of those moments that I've been working towards something like this for my whole career. And so all the work that had gone into it to that point, I knew that I was capable of doing certain things. So it's just about going out there, doing it and enjoying it while it happens. And then, try and look back and appreciate. And thank goodness it's gone the way that it has. And yeah, I really do appreciate like everything, like to work with the people that we had backstage. Like Rhino was our agent, and AJ Francis obviously was out there doing commentary with Tom and Gia, and like to work with everybody, even to work with Jen, you know what I mean? Jade, like it was just fantastic. Like everyone was such a pro there. Like it's what you strive to be when you get into the industry, is to get to that level and to work with those people. So it was amazing experience.
Absolutely. What I want to talk about is Sacrifice Weekend. Mike and I made the road trip down. We went to the Sacrifice pay-per-view event. But for night two, the TV taping, a little more laid back for us. Might have had a couple pregame soda pops to enjoy the show and just sit back and be a wrestling fan. and I was feeling pretty good, and all of a sudden, here you come walking out, working with Johnny Swinger, another Border City wrestling icon. I don't know what it is about this match that you and Johnny Swinger had. It was so good. Like you guys put on a clinic of how to work a crowd, and you guys did, it wasn't like a flippy floppy high spot match. You guys did so much with doing like the basics, and you had the crowd eating out of the palm of your hands. Can you talk a little bit about working with the swingman there and how much fun that one was for you?
Oh yeah, the swingman is the best, like literally the best. So we talked about Border City Wrestling being around for so long. When I was a kid, when I was just in high school, I used to go and watch Johnny Swinger be the Border City Wrestling heavyweight champion. And he was the pinnacle of pro wrestling. So as a little kid, I never thought I'd get to wrestle Johnny Swinger inside of so to me, that was the one of those moments where it's like, oh my gosh, like here I am wrestling the Border City Wrestling heavyweight champion kind of thing. And so obviously like that one I had a little bit more nerves for because it was one of those moments where it was like little kid me was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. But obviously Swinger was the man. Like he's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do kind of thing, right? And really great at telling a story. Obviously, I know what like the moves and stuff. So when it just came down to like the emotion and everything like that, I just had to make sure that I was on point for those things. And yeah, like Swinger is just so good. He's so talented. And to be able to share the ring inside St. Clair College in Windsor with the former Border City Wrestling heavyweight champion, dream come true. Honestly,
Cool.
couldn't be more proud and happy to say that that's happened there.
That's super cool. And we saw it was El Reverso working on those shows there. You're kind of like the Mick Foley of the Ontario independent scene right now. We've got Reverso, we've
Yep.
got El Reverso, and
Yep.
and we have Daniel Wynn. Is that did I get that right? Daniel Wynn, is that how you say it? So
Yes.
tell me a bit about Daniel Wynn and this character that you've got going on. You're doing a lot of work up in Project X Wrestling, I see with him. And tell me of the brainchild and the mind frame behind this.
So Daniel Wynn, it allows me the three faces of Foley is definitely an accurate description because it allows me to like branch out and really apply my skills in a different avenue. So with the El Reverso, I can do the high flying wrestling that everybody is kind of familiar with me with. And with the Reverso, just Dan Pizzano Reverso without the mask, that's more of like the grounded Alex Shelley type technical wrestling, a little bit more heelish, serious, hard hitting. So I have like a different aspect to it. And then when it comes to the Daniel Wynn thing, something that I think is underserved in the Ontario market at this point is like a little bit more of a entertaining character where I'm doing some comedy such stuff. I'm trying to focus on telling a good story, trying to shift gears. And it's one of those, instead of a serious thing, we're going to have let the crowd breathe, kind of have like a moment to laugh and things. So with that Daniel Wynn character, it it's a little bit of a different thing that but I feel so comfortable doing it. And it's honestly one of those things again where I'm trying to honor the history of Canadian wrestling, because not only is there a rich history of Canadian wrestlers that wore masks in the past, but also they would do other characters and such at times too. And this is something that follows down that road. So I'm very proud to say that not only is it not only am I doing it, but it's working out pretty well. And it seems to be that some people are really, really enjoying it. So when it comes to that Project X show on September 20th, I have a lot of people coming up to me going, oh my gosh, how are you going to do it? Like, you're wrestling yourself. Like, how is that even going to work? And, one of my more common replies is, well, buy a ticket, and find out and see. And then I'm sure you'll be surprised, because whereas someone like Mick Foley set that stage before and they would come into the Royal Rumble as all three characters, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to play along those lines and see if I can kind of dabble along the same field, see if I can be as somewhat entertaining, which obviously Mick is one of the greatest entertainers to ever put on a pair of wrestling boots. So I'm just kind of, trying to see if I can take inspiration from his work and somewhat come even shortly close.
From a creative standpoint too, how satisfying is it for you to get to try out these different avenues? And even from a performing standpoint, you have, like you said, I'm going to be high flying El Reverso, or I'm going to be, deranged psychotic Reverso, or I'm going to have some fun tonight. Is that fun for you as a performer to spread your wings like that?
Oh yes. Oh yes. And I find that it's also a little bit demanding too, because there's such a change in attitude between the characters that I almost, when I'm changing my gear, if I'm doing on the same show, I'm changing attitude as well, and I'm having to get into a mindset and everything like that. So, you know what I mean? It's fun. It's a little bit challenging, but just like I try and tell some of my other students that if I don't do the same thing, if I'm not trying to put myself in a position where I'm pushing that comfort zone, then how can I expect them to, right? So that's one of those constantly things I'm trying to, even at my age, I'm trying to grow as a performer, and that's one of those avenues that allows me to, hit it on many levels. And I feel like by performing as Dan Wynn, I'm a better performer as El Reverso, if that makes sense.
That's fair. That's fair. Is it like are you finding too when you're getting bookings now that people are maybe demanding like certain versions of you as well? Like in this area, they don't want high flying El Reverso, they want Dan Wynn, and over here they might want Destruction Bay Yukon, not Ukraine. We'll get into that story a little bit later. Is that kind of something you're finding as well with your bookings?
Yes, I find that people have certain preferences, and I find actually too, once people find that I can do all the characters on the same show, they're like, "Oh, well, if you wouldn't mind doing this," you know what I mean? They really appreciate that.
I can't have you on here and not talk about Gabriel Fuerza. That's how I first met you. Your feud with him has gone not just through Barry Wrestling, but all over the Ontario scene, pretty much. Tell me about your first memories of meeting Gabriel and how you guys kind of bonded to, you guys are like, you're like the Rock and Austin of independent wrestling in Ontario. You know what I mean? You guys are like, fight forever, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn type of deal. How did this relationship come to be with you guys?
Actually, to tell you the truth, it was almost thrown together. So the losing of the mask thing, it was something that I talked about beforehand with a few other people, and it was something that Destiny was interested in at the time. And at first, I thought it was going to be there was actually a chance it was going to be with Von Vertigo, and after some discussion, it was brought up to me that, hey, how would you feel about Fuerza doing it? And obviously at the time I was like, oh, I really respect the guy. I think it would be tremendous. I think that the history and everything is such that it would make a lot of sense. And I was really excited for it. And actually that was the first time that I pretty much actually, like, I think we crossed paths beforehand, like roughly, but that was the first actual like meeting, like, hello, like, excited to do this, right? Yeah. So I gotta say, like, it went really, really well, obviously. Really thankful that I had the experience and the history that I have with him. He's tremendous talent. I think he's one of the best, if not the best, in the Canadian scene. There's a reason why I'm okay with him having the mask, because he's got it. He's got that it factor. The thing that you look for that you can't quite put your finger on. That's what Verza has.
Oh, absolutely. So. Absolutely. And for you as a performer, losing the mask, is that something that you were exploring, kind of thinking about trying to expand your horizons a little bit with your character work?
Yeah, even back then, it was the start of the try and improve myself as a wrestler by getting out of my comfort zone. I had been with the mask for so long, and it started with a few of my friends going like, why do you even wear the mask? Like, you don't need to wear the mask. It's not like you have like, and actually when I was younger, like, I had really bad acne. So it was one of those things that I thought like, hey, it was cool. Like, I can hide that. You know what I mean? I was, able to hide some of my weaknesses with it. But now it was one of those things where enough people had asked me, just like with some other things, like, with the broken nose, enough people come up to me and it makes me think about it. And so at that point, yeah, like, it was time to try something new. And it was funny because I had just wrestled Ace Austin the week before the match where I lost the mask. And he had said something. I was like, oh, I reversed that. And he's like, oh, that's original. Like, I haven't heard that before. And it made me think like, oh, geez, yeah, like, I haven't wrestled him before this time, but he actually was even referencing like how original. Like, I was like, maybe it is time for a change, right? Like, it really, really made me think that even though we were working, there was some legitimacy and truth to that, which is when pro wrestling is at its finest. So yeah, there's been little hints that it was time, and I don't regret it at all. And going back to the relationship with Fuerza, like, it's brought us together, and I hope that other people have seen what we've done and the passion that we've put into that story, and they realize that, like, by putting that passion and that energy into something, they too can grow something into, a great story or a great promo or a great poster or something involved, whatever their passion is.
Yeah, and then of course we saw that transcribe into you coming over to Barry Wrestling. I remember at the time in Barrie, I wasn't their full-time ring announcer yet. I had done it maybe once or twice. Diamond Jim couldn't make one show. I stepped in, and then it was kind of like that weird period of, let's feel it out. Let's see if this is going to be for you or not. I missed the show. I had a bachelor party I was at, and I saw the booking, Fuerza against Reverso for the world title. And I was just getting back into the independent scene. So I'm like, oh, Reverso, I'll look into him a little bit. He looks like he's got some cool moves. What a great look he's got. This will be interesting. Not thinking anything of it. And you come in on night one, you win the Barrie Wrestling Heavyweight Championship. What was that first experience like for you and Barrie, and the reaction from not only, I think you shocked everybody by beating Fuerza in that ring for the belt, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's even a few wrestlers that came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't see that happening actually." So when you can get that kind of reaction even out of the boys, and it tells you did something that was, okay, And to tell you the truth, it was an honor to have Sean consider me to win the title that represents Barrie Wrestling. As you can tell, it's a very rich history for Barrie Wrestling as it is, and that I was able to represent them as a newcomer shows that not only did Sean have a lot of faith in my ability, my experience, where I came from, but just in me as a person, that I was able to, to represent Barrie Wrestling in the best way that he thought possible, even as a heel. You know what I mean? It just knew that we were able to tell that story and use that as a vehicle to promote the show and to growing it on terms of a different level.
Fun.
So I felt that I was really happy with how things turned out. And again, very kind of thing.
Yeah, and you guys told an incredible story, and I was very honored to be a very, very teeny tiny part of that story and getting to do some segments with you. But I'll never forget the first time that I met you, and I kind of alluded this earlier. I'm very green, even still to this day. I've only been ring announcing for a couple of years, so I'm still very green and learning as I go. But my first time meeting you, and I asked, the basic, "Hey, nice to meet you," and you were super nice to me, put my nerves at ease right away, which was very something that I very much appreciated. And I said, "Can I get your information for your entrance? Can I get your weight? Can I get your hometown?" And you told me Destruction Bay, Yukon. And I guess the way that I wrote my notes down, and because of what was happening in the world at the time, when you made your entrance, I introduced you as from Destruction Bay, Ukraine, which was a pretty big babyface country in the world and still is to this day. And I'll never forget, I went back to the table. I think you're working Alexia
Yeah.
Nicole
Oops.
that show. And I went back to the table, and Diamond Jim and Mike Jeffries were laughing at me, going, "You idiot, he's from Yukon, not Ukraine." I'm like, "Oh my God." And I apologized to you in the
Oh,
back, and you were so nice about it. I'll never forget what you said to me. You said, "Hey, don't worry about it, man. These things happen. It's kind of tough to be a heel out there when you introduce me from the biggest babyface country in the world." And I just like that just shows your character, though. You're such a great guy about it. So that's something that I look back and I still get ribbed about to this day from Mike. But yeah, that was my first introduction to you. But that whole run that you did in Barrie, the match with Alexia Nicole was so uncomfortable to watch in the greatest way possible. And I mean that as a compliment because like you guys were going for something there, and it built up to that cage match where you guys did that awesome contract signing segment, which I was very happy to be a part of. But can you kind of talk about your match with Alexia leading into that contract signing segment?
yeah. Oh, for sure. So that definitely was the goal. It's funny that you mentioned uncomfortable. So it's definitely the goal that I had going into there. So I did have the whole story with Gabriel in mind when we were talking it out. And one of the things that I told her at first when I walked up to her was, "Have you ever seen the movie Terminator 2?" Because I'm going to be the liquid metal Terminator in this match, and you're going to be Linda Hamilton. So basically, I took some inspiration because the idea was that I'm, stalking and toying with Gabriel Fuerza, and I'm using Alexia as a device to, achieve an end to that goal. And so, again, like when you said uncomfortable, that was kind of the point. Is like I'm not trying to just win the match. I'm trying to get him to come out, and I'm trying to get him to feel something here, just like he made me feel something. Like he took away my mask, and now I want to take away something from him. So. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I had a very similar uncomfortable experience the next month or a couple months later when you guys did your contract signing. I wasn't aware I was going to be a part of that segment until about 45 seconds before it happened. And that was my first ever in-ring segment ever at a wrestling show. So I was very honored to be a part of that. And you guys did such a great job, setting the stipulations in place where you can't touch each other. The great moment with your sword where you stuck it through the chair. Like, that was such a cool angle. Brian Weiss, who I cannot say enough great things about him, took a fantastic photo of you guys getting ready to fight with me in the middle. That was just such a fun moment, and that led into the big cage match. But that's one thing I like about that feud, though, is you guys got to do something very cool like that, though. You don't see a lot of in-ring talking segments like that in Ontario independent wrestling or independent wrestling in general. So is that something that you look back on as something pretty cool to get to do a segment like that as well?
Yeah, I think honestly, it was one of those things where when you hear people that have more experience and more success than you say, like, this is what got them to the table. One of the things that was playing in my mind around that time frame was Tommy Dreamer telling me, focus on moments, focus on moments. Like, think about this moment and how you build to that moment. And the sword through the contract, through the back of the chair, and that visual was one of those moments where be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Well, that contract signing against me and the sword through the contract is kind of one of those visuals where it's kind of trying to put that into the mind frame of the viewer that, like, oh, this is what they want, like, let them fight, was one of those things that led up into that moment. And then, okay, well, we're gonna fight and this is what you guys are gonna get, kind of thing, right? So that's one of those things where I felt like moments, building towards moments in wrestling, memorable moments, whereas people might not remember the whole promo, they might not remember that whole segment, but they'll remember the like the way it felt to be looking at that sword through the chair as, like, it kind of just stood there in the middle of the ring and people had to, like, take it out after, so it's those things that I'm able to take a little bit of like, sit under the learning tree, and then try and practice it and see if it works out. And thankfully, with the people that I have involved, yourself, Tyler, and Gabriel Fuerza, there's enough talent and people that are around me to help lift it up and make it, like, achieve this moment that we were trying to set out and achieve.
You just said two words there. You said lift it up and moments. And the next month at the cage match, you definitely created a moment. All right. I'll never forget. By this point, I consider you a friend, and I watch wrestling in Barrie so differently now, because now that I've gotten to know everybody, I care more about everyone being okay and safe and healthy compared to anything and that happens. I that's all I want. And I remember looking at you going, getting your information again and going, hey man, just don't do anything crazy out there tonight. Be safe. And then all of a sudden I look up and you're on the top of the friggin' cage doing a moonsault off the top of the cage to Gabriel Fuerza. Run me through that cage match for you. And then of course to the big moment with the moonsault off top of the cage and that whole process of that whole moment.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, what we were trying to do leading up to it was our feud was so bitter and so heated that it couldn't be contained, that it was starting to get into the crowd, it was starting to get into the locker room, that it was starting to get all over the place. And the best way to solve this this heated rivalry was to be, within the cage, the confines of the safety of a cage, in a sense, and make sure that it gets no two people come out unless it's solved. It's done. And so one of the things that we were trying to establish throughout that story is that I was so bitter from the loss of my mask. I was so blinded by hate that even though I was at the top of the cage and I could have just got down, you know what I mean, to win the match, it wasn't about winning at that point. It was about taking something away, like I said, from Gabriel Fuerza and making him feel the pain that I felt of loss. And so by trying to inflict more pain, you know what I mean, that was the moment there that we were trying to achieve, is no, I'm not done with him yet. And that could have cost me in the long run and in the end, you know what I mean? That was one of those things that did. So, we were trying to really tell a story of that the pain of loss sometimes can be so overcoming that it can be blinding. And through, this realization, this accountability at the end, you know what I mean? We both took accountability for our actions. Gabriel said he was sorry for taking the mask, and I said I was sorry for being so bitter and hated and heated
leading into there, and the way that it ended was us. If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry to spoil it, but if the way that it ended was us embracing and forgiving each other for the sins that we committed against each other, and because that's what happens. You know what I mean? In real life, is you can have a disagreement with a good friend of yours, and you might have fight it out, and like it might actually come to blows, but then afterwards. Sometimes you're going for coffee with a bloody nose and Kleenex up your nostrils saying, oh, you're probably right about that or whatever. So, I'm very, very proud of what we were able to do there.
I got to know what was going through your mind when you were at the top of that cage right before you were getting ready to jump.
It was Mick Foley talking about jumping off the Hell in the Cell, going, "Don't look down before you do it, just go, because if you look down, you're not going to want to do it." So it was just don't even really look, just okay. And I know from practice and other things and body control, I know I have to rotate a certain way, and it was just do it.
It was breathtaking. It was incredible. It was an incredible moment. And, to put a cherry on top of it, like you said, you guys are embracing, but not only were you embracing, but it's like the crowd shifted and they really took to you in that moment as well. And it was kind of like, they tipped their cap to not only this incredible story that you guys told, but I think specifically to you as a performer, being newer to the Barrie scene, like Flair's has been there since day one. They turned you into a babyface in that moment and gave you that love. Is that something that you felt in the ring in that moment as well?
Oh, definitely, definitely, because I feel that everybody has a soft spot for second chances, and people, they want to forgive somebody, and like I said, with that accountability coming full circle, that accountability being prominent in that storyline, when I took accountability for my actions and I grew up and matured, people sympathized with that and they connected to that, and they realized that I had learned something and I had grown, and they wanted see me grow and continue to do that. So I feel like it's something that when I do come back to Barrie, I'm going to have to come back, and that aspect of where they're going to want to see me succeed because of everything that I had endured going into that.
Yeah, it was an incredible story. It was it's still one of my highlights of everything we've done in Barrie wrestling so far. I just think it's one of the best start to finishes going. I can't wait to get you back up there at some point. Can't wait to catch up with you in person. This has been awesome. I always like to ask people as we come to the end of the interview here, because I could talk to you for another couple hours. We could pull a Scott Demore on Chris Van Vliet here. No questions asked. But I always like to ask people when you look back throughout your career, everything that you've done from either inside the ring, outside the ring, what's a moment that's for you that you just look back on and it just makes you smile? It could be a great match, it could be a specific moment, just something that just makes you smile when you look back on it.
Hmm. I know we've already touched it, but I think I'm going to say that match against Fuerza where I did lose my mask, because there was a lot emotionally going on around that time frame, and I was dealing with a lot when it comes to loss in general. So it was one of those things where it made me stronger as a person, and I gained a friend from it, and definitely say I look back on that moment and I have great appreciation for it. And it not only grew me as a wrestler, but as a human as well. And so that's one of those things where, uh, being selfish when you talk about going back and watching matches, every once in a while, I'll throw on that match and just be really proud and thankful. Actually, thankful is definitely one of those emotions I feel.
That's awesome, man, for sure. And don't forget, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling is coming at you, St. Clair College. Tell the people one
Yes.
more time, give them the dates, give them the ticket information.
October 19th and 20th. Like you said, at St. Clair College, tickets are on sale Monday, August 26th. So as we're recording it, tickets went on sale. As we're recording, they announced that Josh Alexander is wrestling Takeshita. So there's going to be a lot more announcements that are coming. ELP is on the show. Raj
Kushida.
Desi, former Jinder Mahal. Yeah. Kushida, like Giselle Shaw. It's a star-studded lineup. It's literally a world-renowned show for talent here in Canada, and it's one of the best produced shows. Talent-wise, it's going to be one of the best shows around. And like I said before, it's on par with anything that's going on around the world, anywhere.
Absolutely. And let the people know where they can follow you as well.
That's true. Okay, so on Facebook, obviously, Dan Pizzano. At X, it's at OS Reverso. So it's the same frontwards and backwards. And then on Instagram, it's at Dan Pizzano, just like my Facebook. So go check out my Instagram. That's where most of the times I'm going to post my promos. If you're interested in checking out some of my history, my promos, you're going to see a whole lot of stuff on there. And then for any information on Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, anything like that, you can see that on there as well. And then go to the Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling website where, like I said, tickets are on sale now. That's where you're going to be able to see anything.
Awesome. This has been an absolute pleasure. It's been so good to catch up with you. Like I said, one of my favorite people that I've come across in this crazy world of professional wrestling. On behalf of
as well.
On behalf of Mike, who could not be here today, on behalf of El Reverso, on behalf of Daniel Wynn, and on behalf of Reverso, you have been counted out. Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Take care.